Okay, hello everyone. This Kira show here. Now, apparently, this what if was not dark enough. Someone was asking me to make it darker. Now, part 1 and part 2 were some of the darkest parts of the series. The rest of it was basically about Deku's mental recovery and everything like that. This part, however, was leading up to a relapse. And I basically had to tell them that this part was going to be darker than part 2. Now, let us cut to quirk training. Everyone is training their quirks, and everyone is confused because they're thinking, how is Midoriya going to train his quirk? Now, basically what happens is Principal Nezu created a very complex puzzle out of a lot of different material. Not only does Deku have to look at this puzzle, he also has to augment his muscles to the maximum that he can, along with hold his entire body weight up, along with a couple cinder blocks, or a couple roughly, along with probably an entire tree span of a mountain, and use his telepathy to actually keep everyone in constant contact with each other. But this, going in line with one of the Pussycats' telepathy, would actually help train both of their quirks. Because not only is she able to essentially talk to people and actually have Midoriya to piggyback off of, to widen her range. Essentially, Aizawa would ask her to look into Deku's mind and see one of the things that has happened to him. As soon as she would have started scratching the surface, she would have just told Aizawa that she's not doing that again. Now, as soon as that would have happened, Aizawa would realize just how deeply disturbed what happened to Deku was. Now, let us cut to later on in the day. People are talking about the test of courage. Deku being one of the very first people to actually step up to it, because people will not walk into the forest. Now, as soon as Deku would walk in, Deku would hear screaming, and he doesn't buy that. He would then see a fire. He thinks that this is very odd and unusual because no one in Class 1B has a fire quirk, right? And then Deku would just hear a familiar voice. He would hear Muscular saying, "You must be Izuku Midoriya. Well, we're looking for you, Bakugo, and that half and half kid." Now, as soon as Deku would have heard his voice, he would have immediately turned around, and Muscular would have said, "It's my old punching bag." Well, so this is where you've been the whole time. Now, as soon as Deku saw Muscular, he's immediately remembering every cruel thing Muscular has ever done to him. Now, if you're wondering what some of the things Muscular has done to him, let's say he's gotten a chance to play doctor with Deku. Just like a porcelain doll or a regular Barbie doll, you can twist the limbs and take them off. Putting them back on is harder. Along with the fact that there is a very, very bad bug you do not want to meet in Japan. It is called a Japanese big hornet, which sting has been contributed to feeling like your entire skin is not only being lit on fire, it's being beaten and boiled alive. Let's say Muscular is not one to take it easy on Deku. And Deku has actually been a beehive for a lot of, if not an entire nest of these things before. Now, that is actually one of the worst things that has happened to Deku, aside from having quirks ripped out of him and put back in. The quirks being ripped out of him would rank number 2. Well, this would rank number 1. Muscular's playtime. Now, as soon as Deku would see Muscular, he would have immediately gone into a blind rage, relapsing and automatically augmenting his muscles and going straight to Muscular. Now, as soon as he charged toward Muscular, Muscular started augmenting his muscles, and these two fists would collide. Now, as soon as their hands collided and the shockwave completely bursted around them, everyone's realizing that something's going on. Because the only other times they've seen that is whenever Deku fought All Might. So either Deku got really scared and clapped his hands together, or something's going on. As the Pussycat member would immediately just try reaching out for Deku, she would say that that's not good. All she feels is rage. She's trying to reach out to him, but every time she tries to, all she sees is every cruel thing that has happened to him involving the blonde-haired man. Now, she would immediately recognize this man, and she would just cover her mouth and just start saying that he's here. Oh God, he's here. As Deku would begin screaming and fighting with Muscular. Now, since they both have the same quirk, and Deku actually trains his more intensely, I want to put Muscular and Deku around the same ballpark. But the fact that Deku has muscle regeneration would give him an edge in their fight. Because whenever these two are essentially doing that whole... If you guys have seen that scene in canon where Deku's arm gets swallowed up by Muscular's, these two are essentially throwing around and they're actually fighting their entire way throughout the forest. They're putting out the fire, they're going through the mustard gas, and one of them would probably... They would rip apart the entire forest in the ensuing battle, which Mr. Aizawa would see and he'd be really confused. Now, as soon as they would get to an area where everyone's able to see who Deku's fighting, people would see him and they'd immediately see Deku just running straight at Muscular, no care in his face, just pure rage. His face is like, his mouth is covered in blood and he's just dripping blood. He's got bloodshot eyes as he just will not stop screaming. Now, he would actually get a good hit in on Muscular as Muscular would do the same to Deku. But Deku would have immediately just bit into his hand, or he would have made his teeth like Kirishima and immediately just bit off a couple of Muscular's fingers, actually spitting them back out at Muscular. As soon as that happened, Deku would have immediately used body modification, or augmentation. And he'd actually wrap his entire hand around Muscular's, and he would just bring his leg up, augment it, and just kick it straight off of Muscular. Now, as soon as this would happen, Deku would have actually ripped off Muscular's arm. And he's still screaming, and this is whenever Deku would just take it, and he just beat Muscular over the head with it. He's just going over and over non-stop, just punching him and beating him, and everyone's just watching him do this. As I was telling the Pussycat member with telepathy to actually just get him to calm down. She's saying that she can't because everything that has happened to Deku, that man deserves. And the way she's standing and the way she's looking at him, as I was telling her that she needs to just get him to stop. As she would put her hands on Aizawa's head, and she would be able to activate Deku's quirk by essentially trying to get into his mind. As soon as that would happen, his quirk would activate, and Aizawa would be able to see every single thing that has happened to Deku. As he would just drop to his knees horrified, he would just start puking over and over again. And Deku is still beating Muscular. Now, it would get to the point where Muscular, he's actually just begging for his life. He's trying to augment his arm, and he's still trying to put up a fight. But he's saying that this kid can't be a hero if he just kills him. Deku would say that he can still be a hero, he'll just have blood on his hands. Mr. Snipe, or Snipe and Nezu, or Snipe and All Might. As Muscular would realize that this kid knows what happened to their boss. or the reason for his injury at least. So he would immediately begin turning and running, but as soon as he did that, Deku would have grabbed him with telekinesis, and he would have ripped off one of the muscle fibers in Muscular's leg. Now, as soon as he would have done that, he would have also pulled out the bone. He would proceed to stab it into Muscular's eye. As soon as he did that, Muscular, with his now blind, is just telling Deku that he's sorry, he doesn't mean it, and he regrets everything he's done to him. Deku wouldn't believe Muscular, as he would just put his hand into Muscular's chest, just piercing through his lung. Now, as soon as this would happen, Muscular is essentially drowning in his own blood, as Deku would begin a rampage, murdering the Action Vanguard squad. Now, he would have actually killed Mr. Compress, actually stopping the 3 people from getting kidnapped, along with going back to All for One. Along with this, people would have just been in horror as Deku's just doing so. As Aizawa, he's now just content. He's telling them not to try and stop him. The only person he would leave alive from the Action Vanguard squad that he would have actually still injured would it be Toga. Because she's only ever had conversations with him. She's never physically harmed him. Not to the degree everyone else has. Because Dabi has actually burned him, and he's actually somewhat of a reason for a scar Deku has on his chest. Now, after All Might would show up, and a lot of pro heroes, they would be scolding Deku after they would have found him in a cave just hiding. Now, whenever they found him, they would bring Froppy in, and she would actually have to be trying to console him and actually get his attention. Now, she's asking Midoriya why he did that, and he's saying that he just lost it when he saw them again. Throughout everything he's been through, he knows if those men take him, everything will just be how it was before. And he cannot handle that. Now, as soon as he would have said that, he would have just broke down crying. And Froppy understands this, and she would say that she doesn't blame him, but just make sure that we can take them alive next time. Heroes shouldn't kill. Now, as soon as she would say that, All Might would actually walk into the cave. He's telling Midoriya that, revenge isn't always the best thing. Deku would immediately look at All Might and ask him what about All for One. As All Might would immediately just quiet down and just sit down next to Deku. Now, they would just be sitting there and they're all talking. Pro heroes are trying to scold Deku for what happened, as the Pussycat member and Aizawa, they would essentially just explain everything that has happened to that boy and what they've seen. Not only that, but looking at it from Deku's point of view, not only can they feel the memory, they can feel the pain Deku has been enduring. They can feel every single emotion, every heartbeat, every sound. The water dripping from the tap in the bathroom, the blood running from his wounds, the IV dripping, with just enough adrenaline to keep him conscious from passing out, but not enough to overwhelm his body or his heart from giving out. Just enough to keep him in that little balance of life and death and threading the needle. And Muscular's sick grin as he just enjoys doing what he does. Now, on that horrendous note, this is whenever Deku would go to the hospital, and he is found to have no injuries aside from the ones he already has. Even then, those have all regenerated. But he may actually need to go and see a medical professional for his mind. Now, they would have said that he's fine, and they would all just go back to the dorms. Whenever they head back to the dorms, everyone's somewhat hesitant to approach Deku, as Deku would have just fell asleep on the couch. Now, Deku, he has a room, but he never wants to be alone. So he thinks that if he's always in the common area, someone will be around, because it's the one thing that can comfort his mind. Because of this, everyone would always make sure that there's at least one person around Deku. Not only would, well, they wouldn't have a schedule, but they would at least always hang out in the common room. Anytime, people would just read a book in there instead of in their rooms, actually helping Deku's mental state. Ibara would actually come over to Deku and ask him why he did that, and he would just say that he's not going back there, never again. He's been powerless before, and the fact is that if those men get their hands on him again, it will be worse this time. He disobeyed them, and he knows everything. He'll reach back into my head. He'll find out who I love, who's been nice to me. He'll kill them again. He'll use them against me. He just won't stop being in my head. Now then, the reason why I'm so good at doing those voices is because not only do I do them with a lot of emphasis, I'm actually have tears in my eyes doing them. Someone asked me about that, and that is my answer to them. You have to get really emotional when you do voices like that. Now, back to the what if. Just wanted to slide that in there. Everyone's hearing this, and people are asking what they mean, as Deku would just sigh and say that it's finally time they know some of the things that happened to him. He would show them everything that some of the things he's had to endure, and the most gruesome of them being Deku eating raw food and essentially having his toes and fingers ripped off. And people were asking if that's the most intense thing that's happened. Deku would have said no, and people are still more deeply concerned. Now, after that, they would have gone back to, well, let's say that All Might would have called, and since everyone's in the common area, Momo would just put it on speaker, and she would have to explain that she put a tracker on one of those nomus. Deku would have immediately jerked up at that phrase. She would have just said there's one of those monsters, and that it'll be giving them a location to the villain hideout. As that is happening, All Might would call Deku and Bakugo, or he would put it on speaker. He's telling them that if they would like to, they can actually join him in trying to apprehend the rest of the villains. Deku would immediately jump at this and he would just yell yes into the phone, which would surprise everyone because he has not been that loud before, aside from screaming. Now, that is where I'm going to be leaving off of everyone, and this what if is going to be getting a bit darker after this. Because I already planned on it being darker, but Season 4 is probably going to be a dark part, because I was... Never mind. Actually, I have a question. For those of you who have stuck around to this part, comment down what you guys want me to do for my 500 subscriber special. And you guys cannot just comment over and over again, because if I see something I like, I can do it, but if you guys are going to comment what if Deku is in the Spider-Verse, I want to actually stockpile a lot more of these what if Dekus, and I can actually pull them into the Spider-Verse to help. Essentially helping make it not only a Spider-Verse event, but a Spider-Verse and Deku-verse crossover. So, I was actually thinking about... I can do the anti-venom if some people would like me to, because I actually have a very good idea on how to do it. Now then, I'm going to be leaving this part off here, and I will be continuing the next part. Oh wow. Yeah, I will be continuing the next part later.